Welcome to the Manufacturing Leaders Podcast, brought to you by Theo James Recruitment and me, Mark Bracknell. This is a tremendous episode. Today, we are going to welcome Shirley Spoors onto the podcast. Shirley's a production manager of Akzo Nobel in Ashington, an absolute inspiration and one of the key reasons why they've built the reputation they have. This is a great episode. Initially, we dig into Shirley's past in terms of what's led her to the role she's in today. Then we go right into the detail about Akzo Nobel. We talk about documenting process, we talk about training, hiring, we talk about culture, the importance of progression, all key things that have made them who they are today. You're going to be inspired by Shirley, but you're also going to have real tips and takeaways that you can implement into your business today. You're going to love this episode. I hope you enjoy. Welcome, Shirley Spoors, onto the Manufacturing Leaders Podcast. So I met Shirley last week, the week before. So part of the Engineering Manufacturing Network, Shirley and a colleague did an unbelievable talk about Akzo Nobel, employee engagement, staff retention, and just all the wonderful things they're doing there. And I needed to get her on. So really, really pleased that she's accepted that invitation. So Shirley, welcome to the podcast. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I always like to kick it off, same question. So what does it mean to you to be a leader, would you say?
So I think the first thing that it means to me personally is that you're in a position where you've got the opportunity to make a difference. And that could be making a difference to hopefully the results of the company that you work for, so you can have a positive impact. But you can also make a difference to people's lives, so you can give people opportunities to get into work, to develop their skills, and to do things that maybe they didn't think they could do, and to influence people in hopefully a positive way.
Yeah, love that. Because it's funny, Nick, I think some people probably get into management for the wrong reasons. I think most people probably just think of their own progression, but not enough people think about the impact they have on other people. Do you know what I mean? The influence. We can all think of amazing managers we've had that have molded us together. I guess it's it's a privilege, and we can also probably think of some bad managers we've had as well. I love to speak, and we will speak about Akzo Nobel because the stuff we talked about was great, and I think a lot of people can learn from that. But I love to dig around your journey initially. So, take us back, sort of pre everything. So, was it Northumberland you grew up in it initially? Was it?
Yeah, so I'm from Chesley Street.
Yeah, okay.
I actually live back in Chesley Street now, although I did live in Blythe for about 15 years.
Yeah.
To work. So I probably started working from quite early. My mum came home from the shop one day and said, "Oh, I've got you a job in the corner shop." And I was 14 then, and I started working just in the local newsagents. And actually, it was in the days when the National Lottery was first launched, so I probably sold one of the first National Lottery tickets.
Amazing.
It was on weekends when people used to hire videos to watch because we didn't have like Sky and Freeview.
Yeah.
And so I worked there basically for 6 years. So while I was at school and doing my A levels and university, I continued working in this shop, which I was quite a shy kid before that. And working in the shop and meeting people as you do, selling, people selling stuff and buying 10 pence mix-ups. And I would go down the street sometimes on a Saturday morning with my dad, and I would know like everybody in the town. And my dad would say, how do you know all these people? And it was from the shop. And that gave us some really good, I think, like social skills and life skills of, just work, like meeting different people and seeing different people from different areas and what they did. So that was kind of when I started work, if you like.
Yeah.
But then I did a business studies degree at Northumbria University.
Uh-huh.
Truth be told, I didn't want to go to university. I didn't really want to do A levels. I quite liked drama and singing and dancing, and I wanted to go to drama school actually. Yeah. But my mum and dad said, look, like, no, don't take this the wrong way, but you're not good enough. So why don't you keep that on as a hobby and try and get a proper qualification?
Yeah.
I ended up doing a business studies degree, like a 4-year sandwich degree. So in the third year, you had to work out in industry. So I did 2 placements, one in a frozen food factory, a frozen food warehouse down in Peterlee. And I had to drive the forklift truck. I had to learn how to load the wagons and look after the cold store and pick the orders in like minus 20 degrees, which was pretty horrendous.
Yeah.
But again, it gave you a good insight into that type of work. And then I did the second part of it, working for the newsagents firm that I had worked for since I was young. So I worked in their head office in the HR department at Whitley Bay.
Yeah, it's
So it was quite bizarre. And then obviously when I finished university, I got the opportunity to get a graduate position at Alcan, the large aluminium smelter and power station up in Ashington. Hence why I then moved out of Chesley Street and moved up to Blythe. And I stayed there very happily for about 15 years.
It's I've talked about this before on here, and it is, I think, people who've had like jobs when you're really young, I think it does help mold you. I think at that age as well, you're impressionable. And I think you learn a lot of resilience. And like you say, you probably learn most of your people skills from there, I imagine, forced to.
Yeah, you do learn a lot. And it's funny because like I haven't got kids, but a lot of my friends have got kids. And when they're getting to like 13, 14, 15, I'm like, oh, they're getting a job. And like a lot of it, I'm not going to say all kids are like this, but a lot of children now, they're like, well, no, like, why would I want to do that type of thing? And it's like, well, that's what you've got to do. You've got to, like, doesn't matter where you work, it's getting used to working and meeting people. And there's so much of that I apply to my job now, which is, it's just about people. And if you can talk to people, whatever their background, whatever age they are, whatever their education level, I think that's a really important skill in leadership, particularly.
And imagine for you as well, obviously you'll talk about later, but the community you've built, that was probably very important for you early doors. You know, the community of people knowing you for newsagents and that sort of social circle, I guess. It's again, that was probably your first sort of concept of that, I imagine.
It is. It's really like I am really interested in people, and I'm interested in people's backgrounds and things. But I suppose as I've done different jobs and worked in different companies, you can see that some people just hasn't had the opportunity. And it's really important to be able to tap into those areas if you can, and try to bring those people into work and give them an opportunity. And if big companies like our company, like at Ashington, we don't do that, some people won't get that opportunity. Like I was lucky. I came from a nice family. Both my parents worked. And so I consider myself really lucky. But when I was little, my dad had 2 jobs, my mum had 2 jobs. And that's just what we did, and that's what I'm used to. But some people don't come from that background,
Absolutely. It's exactly that, because you are who your environment, aren't you? And I guess you'd have seen that drive and tenacity, I guess, at such an early age, with both your mum and dad working, hard, I guess, to give you what you want. Do you remember thinking, it's funny, isn't it? You don't look back when you're a kid, it was what it was. Do you remember thinking, oh, they work really hard, I must, or was that just the norm, I guess, for you at the time?
I think so, yeah. But I can remember, like, my mum worked, she used to sell like the Provident loans. When people, I don't know if you remember that. And so but then she also worked as a cleaner, and she did that so that she could pay for me to go to dancing classes.
Amazing.
Which, like, at the time, you don't think it's such a big thing. You just think, well, like, all my friends are going to dancing, so I want to go to dancing classes. But when I look back now, I think like that was a lot that my mum was doing. And my dad was a teacher, and then on a weekend he worked in Just Sport in Newcastle, which was a sports shop where he used to sell the footballers, their trainers, like Gaza and people like that. So but I just thought that was kind of normal. So my approach to work has always been like, I'll work as hard as I need to do to get done what I need to do. Now that view is quite different view, and I think you see people, and I'm not saying that that's the right way, by the way, that's just the way I do, because I think that's normal. But nowadays I think there's a lot more focus on like work-life balance, and some of the younger generation are very much like, well, you work to live, not live to work.
It's a balance, isn't it? It is. And I guess a lot of young people now haven't got the role models that, the uni we're probably lucky enough to have. So they need people, whether that be in work or school, whatever, to show them that actually, you do need to, because I'm a belief you need to work hard for what you get. There's still a balance to be had. Like I say, you can do too much, but you still need to work hard to get what you want in life. Whatever that is, basically. That might be at work, that might be at relationships, that whatever. But you need to work hard, don't you? So no, I completely resonate with that. And looking back, were your mum and dad right about the analysis of your drama and dance, or were they?
Yeah, funnily enough, they were right, and I think they did give us the right advice. And for a number of years before I was traveling with work, I carried on doing like amateur theatre, but I haven't done it for a long time. However, I have just taken a part in School of Rock at the Fine Theatre, which is on in March, which is an amateur production, and it's the first time I'm going back on stage in probably about 15 years. So
dusting the boots off, yeah.
I'm quite excited, and I'm working with a tremendously talented bunch of kids who are just unreal. They all play their musical instruments live, and they are absolutely brilliant. So that's a really good, nice little light relief after work.
Do you think that type of things help with your overall confidence? Because a big part of management, I think, is confidence, either having it or working on it, because it's, to manage people, whether that be stand up in front and talk to people or one-on-one, you have to have a degree of confidence to do that, don't you?
I think so, yeah. And I think that, like, even now, and I've probably been in manufacturing for like 20 years, there's still things that I have to do, and there'll be certain like presentations that I have to make where I get really nervous. And it's the same as if I'm going to go back on the stage. Like, I'll feel physically sick and I'll be really nervous. But I think that's just normal. But you do have to, it's not for everybody being able to speak in front of people. And some people just don't want to do that. Some people don't want, sometimes managing people and leading people is a lot of, like, it's hard sometimes, and you can end up, people have a whole host of problems outside of work, often more so outside of work than inside of work. And I think you've got to be really bothered about people to be able to do these jobs. Otherwise, if you're not, then you cannot really support people through whatever challenges and things that they have.
Yeah, it's people management is probably the hardest part of anyone's job, if that's part of it. It's the most probably rewarding part of the job.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Have the influence, but it is hard because it's day to day. You can't control it, can you? And you can do your best. So I completely agree.
You've got to be able to, as well. You've got to learn, and I think you do this with age and experience. You've got to learn when you can't solve all the problems, and so you've got to be able to signpost people if they need professional help, if they've got mental health problems or health problems. And you've got to not take it all on yourself. Like, in the early days of my work, I used to think if you were sort of working, I worked in HR for a little while, and I thought you had to fix everything for people, and you end up taking it all on, and you can actually make yourself quite unwell because you can make yourself physically poorly by like mentally worrying about loads of people. And that happened to me when I was like in my early 20s, and I was like, oh God, what's happened to us? But it was because I tried to take too much on and try to solve everybody's problems, and you cannot, like, it's just impossible.
Take everyone's stresses. And I guess going back to when you first started, I guess in those tough environments within manufacturing, I guess.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, and I know we're doing everything can to try and change it, there's still not enough females in the sector. Was that the same back then when you started working? Was not that many? Were you, I guess, exception rather than the norm?
Yeah, I think I mean, in the early days, I started at Linemouth Power Station, and I was the only female that worked there, other than the secretary, Janet. Well, there was two, Janice and Eleanor, and also the ladies that worked in the cafe. And to be honest, it was tough at the beginning, but I think it was tough more so because some of the guys in the engineers there that I worked with, some of them I think just didn't really want a female there. Because they think, wait, what do you know? And it makes a smile now. And there were some great guys there, and I still see some of them, and I loved my time there. But it was tough. And I remember this, I took the job as like they said it was an HR graduate and I would do my first rotation there. But when I got there, they were like, oh, we really need a health and safety officer. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about health and safety. Like I've just done a business studies degree.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, well, do you want to go and do a health and safety course? And I was like, well, yeah, of course I'll do what I need to do. And they put us into the maintenance outage, which was like a 6-week shutdown where you had about 200 contractors on site, the scaffolders, welders, shop blasters, a whole heap of people. And they were like, right, can you just sort of go and do the inspections and make sure everyone's working safely? And I was thinking, right, okay. And I ended up just sort of going around with a couple of the engineers with my little boiler suit on and sort of saying to people, can you pick your welding rods up and can you tidy up? And I remember people saying, like, I won't swear, but it like
you can, it's fine.
It was saying it's a power station, not a sweetie factory. And I was saying, yeah, I know that, but if these welding rods drop through the boards, the scaffold boards, and they fall down and hit someone, or like all this rubbish that you've got all over the place, like there could be a fire. And because obviously I'd just done my training, so I was fresh out of all this, and they were like, okay, what's this? And I also remember there was one guy who was really nice from the Argos inspection, it was called, and used to do the NDT testing on the weld after they'd done the repairs. And he would say, oh, it's nice to smell perfume on the boiler. And that was like the best compliment I think I got. But I lasted there for 5 years, and eventually by implementing some of the systems and standards and things that I had learned about, the performance of the power station improved, and we won the President's Award for Safety. And I started to kind of make a bit of an influence, but it was tough. But I was thinking, well, I've got a really good opportunity here, and I'm going to make it work. It's going to work. So
so I guess you almost sort of fell into the shop floor environment, I guess, because obviously HR and health and safety, quality production is very, very different. You know what I mean? And it's probably why HR now is probably more dominated with women, I would say, rather than, and a complete opposite still for the shop floor. So did you ever get frustrated that you had a different experience to men, if that makes sense, in that environment? So was it just, again, it was what it was? So
to be honest, I didn't. And then when I moved, I spent 5 years at the station, then I went across to the smelter where I did 5 years there. And I didn't. And I think that I got opportunities to go on the leadership training with Akzo Nobel. So, with Alcan first. And I got sent to Canada on leadership training in Montreal. And I went to some fantastic places and visited some really good sites. And I also got the opportunity to do my Lean Six Sigma Black Belt training. And I did a diploma in quality management. So Alcan invested really heavily in me as an individual. So I never thought I felt like disadvantaged or anything because I was a woman. And we also had a female smelter director from Montreal. So she was quite an inspirational person that we had at the site. So that was actually fine. And if I look at the job that I do now, like 50% of our management team is females. So it's much more, so I don't feel in a minority group at all.
I guess it's probably important for I guess particularly young girls looking to get into engineering that it probably isn't like, do you know what I mean? Like that you won't be disadvantaged and the times have changed, or do you know what I mean? Because I think there's probably still that stigma around, like it'll be really, really tough because of it. That probably now isn't so much the case, but it's almost breaking that stigma around it down, I guess, to get more people to apply.
It is, and I think that's what Jill and I were talking about when we did the talk at EMN last week, and that was just trying to, if you can tap into the channels of the schools and the colleges where the young people are really, like whether they're female or male, or nowadays there's all sort of different gender descriptions. So I think as time moves on, we'll probably stop this whole discussion about how do you feel being a female or a male, because now it's kind of with gender diversity and things, I think that'll become a thing of the past. And I've always said, and I was always maintain, it's about the right people for the right jobs. But if we can inspire anybody to come into manufacturing, because it can open up loads of doors and great experience. That's what we want to do with our links with the schools and colleges and in some of the other institutions that we work with.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of it comes, I say, it comes down to all of that. It comes down to marketing. You know, if you were to Google engineer now, there'd probably still be images of the old school engineer man, I guess.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I guess
Yeah.
if that starts to change and it's just,
Yeah.
you just see an engineer and one happens to be a woman, happens to be a man, then it just stops being a thing anymore, doesn't it? It's this thing around. So no, I completely agree. I guess Alcan, obviously, that was famous as well for having an amazing community. And you know, I've placed maintenance engineers for 10 years, and I placed loads who were ex-Alcan, and they just all knew each other. They all stuck together. Yeah. They all spoke so highly of it, and they said they would never left if they didn't have to.
Yeah.
So, did you feel that working there? Would you feel like you were part of something?
I did, and like I remember driving up for my first interview, and it was massive, like the smelter, the skyline, and everything. It was phenomenally big, you know, just a big space on the land. And I remember being in the smelter and thinking, like, this is a job for life. And most of the people that work there had literally worked there for 40 years, like literally since it was built. I actually left Alcan in 2008, so it was before the closure, which was around about 2012.
Yeah.
So the reason why I left was I wanted to get an opportunity to be a manager. And there wasn't, like, when I looked above us, there was sort of 3 individual plants who had, you know, 3 fairly young managers around about my age, a little bit older. And so I decided that if I wanted to be successful, I was going to have to go and do something different.
Yeah.
So I ended up leaving, and I spent about 4 or 5 years in 2 other companies before I joined Akzo Nobel. And I honestly think that doing that helped me get the jobs that I've then got. Yeah. Rather than just staying in the same place. Yeah. Although if it had been there, it would have still been a phenomenal place to work at.
Yeah, absolutely. It's and it was famous for it. And I imagine a lot of the stuff you brought into Akzo Nobel was, I guess, you saw there and took that on, I imagine.
Yeah, well, Alcan invested heavily in lean manufacturing, and they used a lot of consultants to help implement lean. And so we actually picked the best parts of lean, coupled with our experience from different places. So when we built the team here, they had all come from different places, from pharmaceutical, petrochemical, from just different non-manufacturing type environments. And we cherry-picked the best bits of everything. That with some bits that we didn't like or didn't work were left out, but the majority we've brought in, and we've tried to create a space where you've got the best of traditional management systems coupled with like visual management in lean, like with the really powerful stuff that really helps you to change culture.
Yeah, excellent stuff. And talk me through, obviously, the Akzo Nobel. So I'm right in saying, did you initially start in the Slough office? Was that how you first would you down there?
Yeah, so I joined Akzo as the group quality manager for the UK and Ireland business. My job was to work between the 4 manufacturing sites, the research and development, in the marketing and sales unit. And I worked for the managing director and the supply chain director. And so if there was any complaints or concerns, I had to investigate them and work out, is it a formulation problem? Is it a manufacturing problem? Or have we just put the wrong claim on the tin? Like, was it a market issue? And that was a really, really interesting job. And obviously the brands that are associated with Akzo Nobel are really powerful, really strong. There's a lot of heritage in the Dulux brand, the Dulux dog, everything like that. And it was brilliant. And it was really special for me going down to work in Slough when they told us that they were building a factory in Ashington. And I was like, what? And I said, I need to work there. And they were like, well, you can't work there yet because it's not built, but also you've got a job here. But it was, you know, in the back of my mind, I thought, I'm going to work in that factory. Like,
it's can't be a coincidence that. You moved from Blythe as well down to there initially? Yeah,
so I was very fortunate that they were letting us travel on a Monday and go back on a Friday. So I actually lived in the Marriott Hotel for 2.5 years. And I got very well looked after by the staff in the Marriott Hotel. I even had my slippers with my name on. So it was really good. And there was a lot of the sales reps who were traveling, who would come and stay there. So I got to know a lot of the
nice.
the people in the team, and so that was really good. So when the factory started to get built, and Jeff was appointed as the site manager, Jeff and I used to work together at Alcan, so we had a lot of history together.
Yeah.
And he asked us if I would come and help commission and get the site legally compliant first. And then in 2016, he asked us if I wanted to become the production manager. Because essentially, like you were saying before, like the production manager is pretty much, it's an HR manager, it's a health and safety manager, it's a quality manager.
Yeah.
Like you do all of that, and then you have to like make sure that you get the cans out the door as well.
Yeah.
So it was quite nice because of the jobs that I'd done. It had given us good exposure to take on.
Yeah.
And then I just had to learn the plant and learn the factory and learn how we were going to actually deliver the paint, because it was quite complex putting the commissioning plant together.
How difficult in terms of, like say, a new factory is really hard. If I think of all the clients I work with where they've got a new site, the first year has been so hard, because essentially it's like building a new business, because you've got people who most of them are probably completely new to the business. Might have some more transfer over. So you've almost got to create a culture. You've got to teach people the process. You've got to create everything from scratch. How hard, how much of a challenge was that in the early days?
It was really hard. And I still maintain to this day I would never do it again. Like it was a great experience, phenomenal experience to say that you've commissioned and started up a site, like really brilliant. And I'm really proud of what the whole team did. Like we had and still have a brilliant team. We recruited people that we believed would have the right culture. So we recruited against a set of cultural principles. But in order to then ensure that the people could deliver what we needed them to deliver, we had to build really, really robust procedures, management systems, standards, because if you go for cultural fit rather than experience, obviously you've got a gap there in terms of knowledge. We were very fortunate in the startup to have the Akzo Nobel invested heavily, because the startup was late and it was very costly. So Akzo Nobel invested to bring in a guy who was the vice president of Shell, a guy called Rule Cornelius. And he came on board and he was like our coach. And what a guy. He was absolutely formidable. And the things that he taught us about, because he had started up massive big oil refineries in the Middle East and stuff, and he had sort of had to recruit like tens of thousands of people to do that. So he said everything is about work engineering flow sheets. You can document everything. And so he got us into that mindset of how to commission and start up with a mix of some experienced, obviously commissioning engineers, but with your operational team. And so that you stay safe and that you bring the gear online and everything works. And so like I consider myself and our team really lucky to have that influence. But we had a really strong leader in Jeff, and he keeps us grounded, always focuses us back to the standards. So if you get into trouble about anything, you'll say, well, what does the standard say? Have you got a standard? And often you would go, oh, we haven't wrote one for that. And you would say, well, that's why you're in bother. So why don't you stop trying to firefight, get in a room or get in the factory, get the relevant people together, listen to what people are saying, strike a standard, implement the standard, and then check that it's working. And even if the standard's not 100% right, it doesn't matter. It's better than not having a standard, and you can always continuously improve. So from the very start, Jeff said, all we want every day is a little improvement. And if everybody has that mindset that every day I'm going to do something just that little bit better, that's what we do, and that's what we encourage everybody to do.
So incremental changes. And obviously that's perfect for manufacturing, but that can be perfect for any business, can't it? It's all about process. It's funny, actually.
100%,
I was reading a book of the week about McDonald's. It's about franchises, but why McDonald's is so successful, because the process. So if you walk into any single McDonald's in the whole world, and there's obviously thousands of them, the process to make the burger, the chips, are exactly the same. And it's right, isn't it? Because
it is.
it's not that you want robots, but you want procedures. And I guess when you hire, then now you've got a set procedure, how you hire, how you train, and how they do the job, which for them must be make the job so much easier, I guess.
Well, I think it's outstanding processes deliver outstanding results.
Yeah.
If you have average processes and outstanding people, you just get average results.
Yeah.
So you can afford, and I know this might sound a bit derogatory, and I don't mean that, you can afford to have average people, like diversity-wise, if you've got outstanding processes, and you'll deliver outstanding results, and that is proven, in many different industries, and that's what we are trying to do here. And we're doing it, and we've been recognised. We're investors in People Platinum, which is a really, really high-profile status to have. And whenever we've had visits from new directors and what have you, they always look at our processes and our management system and say, like, that's world class. And our team has built it. So then you've got ownership and buy-in, and it's not like one of those old-fashioned management systems that you just wheel out for your ISO audit. We actually use it. It's alive. It's we audit it, we process confirm it, and we measure our team's performance on compliance to it.
Yeah, love that. You must be so proud now, driving every morning, seeing, like, you know what I mean, when you go down the road and you just see the big blue building, you just think, when you first drove in, there was just nothing there. I guess it must be quite a proud moment, I imagine.
It is, and like, we are like extremely proud, and we're really privileged that that Akzo Nobel decided to create its biggest ever single investment in Ashington. And that we got the opportunity to sort of bring it to life. And it is, I bring in people now for jobs, and when I explain about the background and what we've done and things, I am immensely proud, and I love my job, and I love the team that we've got here. It's fantastic.
Northumberland's almost like a hidden gem, I think, for many reasons. To me, I've been up here for 20 years now, but I'm from Sheffield, so I guess I can see from both sides. But it's like people know Newcastle, people know the northeast, if you like. But as soon as you say the beach of Northumberland, they don't. You've only got to come here to go, wow, unbelievable.
We like to try to keep it a secret, though. We don't want too many people coming.
It makes sense, because you walk on the beach now in Amber or something, like, there's no one on it, and it's just miles of sand.
Beautiful, yeah.
And even the industry, I mean, obviously, the likes of the companies that they've got there, and obviously I appreciate its results have been the press, but they're still going to, I'm positive that I'm sure be a big powerhouse. And it's just another large step to Northumberland growing that industry again, which is brilliant. Really. It can only be a good thing for everyone.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And Jeff, our site manager, has worked really hard to make connections with the likes of Tharsis and some of the other big companies, just so that we can try and have a bit of a network. And we've got a good connection with Ian from British Vault. So we've had, they've been to our site, we've been to their sites, and it's really nice because we want to show that, like, we don't want to be in competition with each other. So, like, the labour market is really tough at the minute, as you've got more experience than me, but we didn't want to be fighting over people. So we've been sharing with Brian from Tharsis and Ian from British Vault what we're doing. Work with the colleges. We've got great partnerships with Northumberland College. Members of our team have helped to influence the curriculum so that we can create process technicians and people that are like industry ready for advanced manufacturing, because the traditional apprenticeships and things didn't cover like what you need to run a site like this and to be able to maintain a highly automated facility. So you can't recruit the people that you could just bring in and operate or work in here. So growing your own talent and working with the educational establishments to give people a formal qualification is absolutely the way forward. But we're trying to do that with a bit of a Northumberland powerhouse, if you like. And we've had, we've got some really good relationships already set up with the other businesses, which has been great, and we'll continue to do that.
It's such a good way to think about it, because people I think some people go, oh, we've got a big company now, they're going to be competition, and we'll just have to make sure we look after our staff, which is right. But at the same time, you work with them and you just make you both better, because there'll still be a lot of people traveling to Newcastle who live in Northumberland. Do you know what I mean? So I guess there is a talent shortage, but the problem, as you highlighted, is still the education side. So the fact that together, two powerhouses to change that. That's much more of an impact than anything you could do to stop people leaving.
And it's really good just to share like best practices and share some of their challenges and some of the concerns. And so some of our team members has been on the same courses. Some of Brian's team from Tharsis and our team are on the same courses, and some of the British Vault lads are on the same apprenticeship. So they're all working together, which is actually really good. And that's what we want. Like, we want really thriving industry.
Yeah.
Like up this beautiful county of Northumberland. It's fantastic.
Yeah. And then more people will move, but then the beaches will be full. But the more people will, because to fill factories like that, they're going to have to get people to relocate to the area.
Yes,
they have to be, but they need to make that as attractive as possible. So no, I mean, I think that's brilliant to hear. Obviously, from the talk he did, culture was so important to you. Was that just something that organically happened, or did you go, we need to make sure that when people work, it means something to them? Because I am from a recruitment background, we get to know the businesses and I guess the reputation of businesses. And I'm not just saying this, but the reputation Akzo Nobel has is brilliant. And in terms of people are proud to work there or to have worked there. And that can't be an accident, I guess. Was that a conscious decision to try and create something?
Yeah, I mean, when Jeff was given the brief to start the site, he was actually told by the supply chain director at the time, you need to build something outstanding. We want something different. We just want something where you're really going to have a great culture.
Yeah.
So would develop these cultural principles, 5 different things, which was essentially around having one team who spoke with one, we didn't want an us and them. We had a lot of experience from the past on sort of fighting in between the employees and the staff. So we didn't want to have that. We wanted to make sure that we had continuous improvement as the norm. So we wanted to make that normal. We wanted to have a diverse environment that motivates people to learn and grow continuously. And we wanted to be a good neighbour. So we wanted to be immersed in the community and the community in us. And we also wanted to provide a unique experience for our customers, our suppliers, and anybody that came to visit us. So we recruited against that set of cultural principles. And still to this day, we measure people's performance against their adherence to the cultural principles. And so we say to people in an interview, would you be prepared to give up at least one day of your time to work on a community project? And that could be painting an old people's home, or it could be donating some. We've done quite a lot of litter picks on some of the pathways to the site. It could be going to a careers fair to do a talk to inspire young people to come and work here, but it's just giving up your time to give something back to the community. So we do that, and when you do that and you arrange these type of little get-togethers, we do on a Wednesday night, we do football fitness, we do better health at work schemes, and you just try to do things to give people an opportunity to give something back, but also to enjoy themselves. To learn and to develop themselves as well.
Yeah, love that. Do you mind talking through, because I think 99% of people recruit and hire and interview in the traditional way, first stage informal, second stage walk around and then make a decision, which works for some companies. But I probably opened my eyes how the process you talked about. Do you mind sharing that? It's okay.
Yeah, sure. So we have initially we do a telephone screening interview. So if it's people that's joining the production team, which is operators, process techs, shift leaders, we'll do an initial screening interview where I've got some just general questions asking them about their background. What are they like doing? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? Where do they live? That sort of stuff, just to find a little bit more about them. And then if they get through that one, we do a face-to-face interview, which is against the cultural fit. So that's where we'll ask them questions like, can you give us an example where you've demonstrated that you've supported a community event or something like that? So it's very much questions against those 5 cultural principles. Then they do a little short English test and a maths test, just to test the basic English and maths skill. And then we do a group activity. So we'll put them into a little group of maybe 4 people, and we give them a problem to solve. And then there's 2 observers who'll just watch. And that's, to be honest, out of the whole process, that is by far the most powerful, because that's the bit where people's true colours come through. And you can see sometimes you'll get someone who will go, right, I'm in charge, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And because I think they think I need to show that I'm like,
this is
I'm
my
taking
moment.
control. But actually that's not what we're looking for. What we're looking for is people that are going to listen to each other and ask each other, what do you think, and what do you think? And they come to they get to the end result together as a team. And so that's a really powerful part of the process.
Yeah, I like that.
And because like in the early days, before we developed that, we would just interview people like in the traditional way. In what I've learned in like, I don't know, 15 years of interviewing people is people can act really well in an interview, and you can think, oh, they're brilliant. Sometimes the people who are a bit more nervous and a bit quieter and a bit less confident, nowadays they are the people that I would always give the job to, rather than the person that was really confident.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's do you because funny enough, we only started doing that about 6 months ago, actually. So ours was quite traditional before that, and we did it probably because we probably thought, well, we had like an assessment day, so we actually had like 10 people, then we whittled them down. We had loads of activities. We probably didn't have the confidence to think 10 people would turn up previously.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean, in that sense? But because it did, and it worked really well. And like you said, the group one was brilliant because you saw people come out of the shell. You saw people who just didn't have any confidence to talk in a group, and it was really important. What the difficult process was agreeing at the end, because there was 4 of us basically watching and talking to them, getting together as a team and saying, right, okay, who do we like? And it was the people, everyone else has got a different opinion, but I like the fact if you're doing it on your values, then obviously that's what you're looking for. People are gonna okay, are they showing this? Are they showing that? That's the difference, I guess, isn't it? The fact you can
it's really important, because it's funny as well, because people will come out and go, well, you didn't ask anything about Akzo Nobel, and I've learned loads of stuff about what you make and what you do, and we're like, oh no, and I'm not bothered about that. Like, we can train you all that. What we're bothered about essentially is, have you got a good heart?
Good people.
At the bottom of it, that's are you a nice person, and are you bothered about people? And that actually is more important than anything else, because pretty much everything else is trainable.
100%. And like you say, if you go right back to the processes, if you've got just good people who are going to work with people, then they have your outstanding processes, they're going to work.
Do
you know what I mean? The people who probably think I'll do it my own way, they're the people who probably loud and shouting about and don't think they need this process. And so no, I love that. In terms of employer engagement, I think right now, the market is tough, and people are leaving a lot of companies for tiny reasons. In some cases, 50p an hour more and less, and all sorts of stuff. Which it's still going to happen time to time. What have you done on the sort of retention side, and I guess looking after your staff to have that engagement? Is that something you've worked on consciously?
Yeah, it is. And we developed a couple of years ago now, we developed what we call our pathways process. And that's where every single employee gets 2 meetings a year, formal meetings with their line leader. And we can give them opportunities and pathways that they can go down into progression or into gaining additional skills. Now, those skills, there's about 15 different courses now that are available at Ashington College. Some of them, the teachers come here, they come to the site, so the employees can do their learning actually on site. Some of them are physically at the college, some of them are distance learning. So we open those pathway opportunities for everybody that's on site if they want to learn things. And that could be learning how to use Excel, to doing a 4-year engineering apprenticeship, to doing level 3 teaching assistant qualifications to help you so that you can train people better. So there's a range of different things, which is really good. And we do that, like I say, we do pathway 1 around about April, May time, then we do pathway 2 in about August, so that we can get people signed on. But if people just want to learn an additional skill in the factory, they don't want to do a formal qualification, or they want to work in a different part of the plant, the pathway process enables us to move people and to let people become multi-skilled and agile.
Yeah.
On top of that, we also do like a fact file review where the leaders just catch up with their team members, check in formally. That's normally done quarterly. And we also, every single day, we just say to our whole team before they start work, are you engaged?
Yeah.
Have you got everything that you need?
Exactly.
And if anybody's struggling or has any problems, we pick that up on a daily basis. And then we survey formally every quarter as well. So we'll send out a survey and ask people, there's about 10 different questions. It used to be based on the Gallup engagement survey, which you might be familiar with. So we do that internally, and then Akzo Nobel corporate does the OHI index, so they do that survey, and that usually happens 3 times a year. So we're constantly interested in asking people about their engagement, and it's as important. The engagement of the people is as important as the business results to us.
And I imagine a lot of the answers you get to that, I imagine a lot of are personal to them, but they might complain about a process or I imagine you get a lot of improvements to the site and to the business just from the answers you get from that if people aren't sure about something.
Yes, 100%. And we encourage the team. We've developed these little badges, Kilbourne badges we call them, inspired by Oliver Kilbourne from the Pitman Painters, who obviously would take a lot of inspiration on how we act and what our culture is. And that's about the ability to give and receive feedback without penalty. And so we've developed these little Kilbourne badges. Oliver Kilbourne's family let us use his name, which keeps the heritage of him alive in our factory. And so we encourage our team members to make improvements, and you can get a badge. And the badges, when you add them all up at the end of the year, go towards a financial reward as well.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. And you mentioned the Pitman, I keep on saying Pitman Poets because I went to a folk night with my mum and there was a Pitman Poets and like 2 days before, so the thing. But so the Pitman Paintings you mentioned before, that you've obviously, this is another reason for your cultural and the community aspect. And these were ex-miners that became painters, and obviously you've now got the paint. Have you got one there? Did you mention as well? Have you one there?
Yeah. This is a Pitman painting.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, I love that. And
we've got them all over the factory, actually. Not the originals, because the originals are really expensive. These are print.
Yeah, it's I like that. And I guess that you'll have your own Akzo Nobel way, but that's the Akzo Nobel Ashington way, isn't it? You know, your own.
It is, yeah. So our inspiration from the Pitman Painters, so these were a group of miners that at the end of the day met in the miners' welfare. They wanted to learn, they just wanted to learn things, learn and grow. So that's at the heart of our cultural principles. And it's the inspiration of team members being able to say to each other, hey, I think that you could maybe do that in a different way, and it would be a bit safer, or it would be a bit quicker, or the quality would be better. And it's for the person who's receiving it to go, okay, thanks, mate. Not like going in the huff or being upset about it. It's knowing that feedback is to help you to improve, and it's all linked to making continuous improvement normal, and it's feedback without penalty.
Yeah, love that. Excellent stuff. And just fine in regard to thank you very much for talking about Akzo Nobel, because I think adds loads of value. I know you've done quite a bit with schools and STEM, which has to be. I think every business now has to do that if we're going to collectively help manufacturing. What I was really interested as well, which is quite unique, I would say, is the work you've done with SEND, your special education needs. That's obviously had an impact, a positive impact with the business. Was that quite recent? Have you done that since day one? Or
no, we didn't do it since day one. We've been working, I would probably say, for a couple of years now, just trying to build the partnerships. And we've got a really good partnership with Buzz Learning, which is like a little school college in Ashington. And we work. And Jill's been really heavily involved. Who was on the talk the other day? She was actually at Garden yesterday doing at a big event for young adults and children with special educational needs, and she had a big stall set up just to give, show people that there are opportunities. But what Jeff is very, very keen that we try to influence what the other employers do. So if big employers or little medium-sized don't take these steps and make these, and it could just be a little, giving someone the experience of an interview, or giving someone some unpaid work experience. Ultimately, the end goal is that we get the people in the SEND category into employment.
Yeah.
Depending on what their backgrounds are, what their particular needs are. We know that we can customize and we can change things, but there's quite a lot of sort of prejudices attached to it.
Yeah.
In like as individuals, we have to learn to not have those prejudice as well, and that everybody has some sort of needs of some description, and it's about just looking at things differently and making the opportunities. And everybody at the site who's worked with the guys that we've got, Amelia, who works in the cafe now, in Leon, who's in the lab, and Lennox, who's working in manufacturing. And we had young Reese, who is doing the cleaning. He's now working with animals. They're brilliant. And it's so good to be able to give them an opportunity. And we can learn so much from them as well.
Yeah.
So if we would love to inspire others just to take that step, make the connection with Buzz Learning or similar learnings, or make the connection with us, and we can share what we've done, so that if every company tries to do something, there's a whole sector of society that we could help.
Make a huge difference. Yeah.
And I'm a massive, in the confidence that we've seen from Amelia, particularly, like she was so quiet, she was so nervous, and now she's brilliant. She's doing really well, and she's cheeky, and her confidence has grown so much, and it's really good that we can do that.
And that must be amazing for people, for yourself and Jill, but also other people on the site to have played a little small part in helping. You know what I mean? That because you wouldn't always. I guess you will have opened people's mind on that site.
Definitely, yeah.
You know,
I think Jill's had a lot of contact with the parents of the young adults that are here, and she said they are like over the moon that they've had an opportunity to come to the big paint factory and get a job here or get some work experience here. And we've really enjoyed it, and we're going to do more of it, and we're going to continue and hopefully get some more of the young adults into work experience and hopefully into like proper formal employment.
No, that's amazing. I love that. There's other questions I tend to ask, but this has been amazing. So we'll do some quick fire ones. What I've done as well, I've completely normally this is twice I've forgotten now. I ask, which I've stolen off another podcast. I normally ask the last guest a question to ask the new guest. I completely forgot to ask Don. So I had Don Murray, the MD from Spincraft, and I completely forgot to ask him the question to ask you. So I'll ask you the question that was asked to Don from Eddie, who's the MD of this is called Cellpack in Peter Lee, because it was a good question.
Right.
So I'll ask you this one. If you could go back in time, any time in your career, when would it be? What would it be? And would you change anything?
Oh.
That was a good question, that's all.
It is a good question. Probably the only thing I probably would have done is I would have stuck in at science a bit more.
Science, yeah.
So I didn't like science. I was quite bored by it. But I like working in a factory like this with formulations and recipes. I really wish I'd stuck in a bit more at science.
Yeah.
But I had a friend, Sarah Gilroy. We used to call each other our second name, so it was Gilroy and Haskett. We spent more time laughing and getting split up for laughing. Now I probably spent more time getting put in the lab technician's cupboard for laughing than actually sat in the lesson. And then she used to say at the end of the lesson, "Sir, can I get Haskett out the cupboard?" And so if I could go back, I would have probably maybe not sat next to Gilroy and studied a bit harder in science.
Yeah.
But in terms of everything else, I've got no regrets. No.
Yeah. It's I think everything you do leads you to where you are, and I think you seem incredibly passionate and incredibly happy what you do, which is good to see. I mean, just finally, you've touched on this already, which is loads of things that Akzo Nobel are doing will help manufacturing. But what do you think is the one thing that manufacturers and people need to do to help the future, would you say, of manufacturing?
I think we need to really continue with investing in really strong management systems, strong processes, strong procedures, and really work hard on people and culture, and look at the whole recruitment piece on diversity, because a diverse workforce with really strong processes and procedures delivers you really good results.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
Excellent. Well, look, Shirley, this has been a superb. Really appreciate it. And thank you so much. It's been great, and loads of value obvious value there. I mean, it's been fascinating digging around your journey, but just real things that people can actually, tangible things people can go, okay, yeah, we can take some of this and we can improve our process, our factory, our people. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Mark.